The dwarf with the golden beard. Sebastian's princess is stolen from him by a golden-bearded dwarf. Once upon a time, in a vast and wondrous kingdom, preparations were underway for the grandest wedding the land had ever seen. Prince Sebastian, brave and noble, was to marry Princess Sophia, the most beautiful maiden in all the realms. The castle halls were adorned with golden tapestries, fragrant flowers lined the walkways, and the kingdom buzzed with joy and celebration. Yet among the guests was one who did not come to celebrate. A wicked dwarf, known for his cunning magic, lurked in the shadows. He was no ordinary dwarf. His beard was made of pure gold, long and shimmering, reaching the ground like a river of fire. This dwarf, once a suitor to Sophia, had been rejected, and his heart burned with jealousy and rage. He had sworn to have her for himself, no matter the cost. As the wedding ceremony began, with the sun casting golden hues through the stained glass windows, an unnatural wind howled through the church. Dark clouds spiraled above, and in an instant, a violent hurricane erupted inside. Guests screamed, candles blew out, and when the storm cleared, Princess Sophia was gone. Sebastian's heart pounded in his chest. "I will find her," he declared, gripping his sword. The king, furious and terrified, roared, "Find her, or never return." The quest begins. Sebastian rode into the unknown, his heart heavy but his resolve unshaken. Through valleys and dense forests he traveled, until he came upon an owl attacking a small, trembling hare. Drawing his dagger, he scared the owl away. The hare, eyes gleaming with gratitude, spoke, "Prince, you seek the dwarf's castle, but you will need the sword of sharpness to defeat him. It lies in the Dragon's Mountain, and only the wild horse of the forest can take you there." Before vanishing into the bushes, the hare pointed to a rock. Underneath it, Sebastian found a golden bridle and a silver whistle. The fiery horse, Sebastian blew the whistle, and with a thundering gallop, a wild stallion with flames in its eyes appeared. It charged at him like a storm, but the prince held firm, throwing the golden bridle over its head. Instantly, the horse tamed, bowing before him. "You have tamed me, brave prince," the horse neighed. "Now ride, and I shall take you where no man dares to go." It whisked Sebastian to a hidden valley, where it performed a magical trick. It instructed the prince to pass through its ears. Trusting the horse, he did so and emerged clad in shining armor, his sword gleaming like the sun. The Dragon's Mountain. As they reached the Dragon's Mountain, smoke billowed from the peak, and the air grew thick with heat. The dragon, its scales as red as burning embers, lay sleeping atop a pile of treasures. Carefully, Sebastian crept forward and seized the fabled sword of sharpness. But just as he turned to leave, the dragon's eyes snapped open. "Spare me, O prince," the dragon bellowed. "I shall not fight you if you heed my advice. Do not just take the sword, also steal the dwarf's beard, the water of life, and his cap of invisibility, or you will never escape his wrath." Sebastian nodded and rode toward the dwarf's castle. The dwarf's iron castle. The castle was a fortress of iron, its walls blackened by dark magic. Standing at its gates, Sebastian sounded his war trumpet. The golden-bearded dwarf appeared, his small frame cloaked in wicked power. "You dare challenge me?" the dwarf sneered. A fierce battle erupted. The dwarf's magic struck like lightning, but Sebastian, armed with the sword of sharpness, countered each blow. With a final strike, he sliced through the dwarf's beard. A terrible wail echoed as the golden strands fell to the ground. His magic was gone. Sebastian rushed inside and found Sophia trapped within a room of mirrors. "Sophia," he called. "Sebastian," she cried, "I have tricked the dwarf. I stole his cap of invisibility and used it to hide from him." Together, they gathered the cap of invisibility, a flask of the water of life, and fled. Betrayal and triumph. Weary from his journey, Sebastian lay to rest under an old oak tree. But as he slept, King Saradine of the Black Mountains, a wicked rival, discovered them. Greedy for fame, he stole Sophia away and claimed he had rescued her. When Sebastian arrived at the palace, Saradine stood before the king, boasting of his heroism. But Sebastian stepped forward, holding the dwarf's severed golden beard. "I am the true hero," he declared, "and if proof is needed, behold." He sprinkled the water of life on Sophia, breaking the final remnants of the dwarf's curse. She awoke, her eyes full of love. The king, seeing the truth, banished Saradine forever. That very night, Sebastian and Sophia were wed, their love now stronger than ever. The golden beard was melted into coins, which they used to help the poor, and the cap of invisibility was locked away so that no evil could wield it again. Moral of the story: true love and courage conquer all. Deception and greed, like the dwarf's golden beard, lead only to ruin. Princess Rose and the Golden Bird. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a beautiful princess named Rose. Known for her long, gorgeous red hair, she was beloved for her deep love of roses, earning her the title Princess Rose. Each evening, Princess Rose would look out from her balcony and clap her hands, and a golden bird would fly to her shoulder, turning her hair into a stunning golden hue. When the golden bird perched on her shoulder, Princess Rose would sing her melodious songs, which enchanted the entire kingdom. The people would listen to her songs, fall asleep peacefully, and dream sweet dreams. 4 years, Princess Rose sang night after night, and the kingdom thrived in tranquility and joy thanks to her songs. But one day, a terrible thing happened. An evil sorceress from a neighboring town learned of Princess Rose and her golden bird and decided to cast a spell to strip away her beautiful red hair, turning it into a dark, lifeless black. The next morning, as Princess Rose went to her balcony and clapped her hands, the golden bird flew to her shoulder. But this time, her hair turned black instead of its usual golden color. When she sang, the people of the kingdom were plagued by frightening nightmares. Heartbroken by the loss of her red hair and the troubling dreams affecting her people, Princess Rose called upon the golden bird and asked for a way to restore her beautiful red hair. The golden bird told her she needed to gather a number of red roses, remove their petals, and place them in a water-filled box. She should then dip her hair into the box to restore its red color. Princess Rose followed the bird's advice, and her hair regained its vibrant red hue. Overjoyed, Princess Rose resumed singing with her golden bird, and the kingdom once again enjoyed peaceful, happy dreams. However, the evil sorceress discovered that her spell had been broken and decided to gather all the red roses from the surrounding area to prevent Princess Rose from breaking the spell again. The sorceress recast the spell on Princess Rose, turning her hair back to black. Desperate and unable to find any red roses to break the spell, Princess Rose wept. As she stood on her balcony, tears streaming down her face, she noticed a handsome prince gazing up at her. The prince held a box containing a single red hair. He placed the hair where Princess Rose had been crying, and it magically transformed into a red rose. Princess Rose took the rose, removed its petals, and placed them in a water-filled box. She dipped her hair into the box, and it returned to its lovely red color. The handsome prince approached Princess Rose's father to ask for her hand in marriage, and the king consented. The prince and princess married and lived in happiness, enjoying their love and the magical music that brought joy and contentment back to the kingdom. Princess Rose continued to sing every evening with her golden bird, ensuring that the kingdom's dreams remained sweet and that everyone lived in peace and happiness, thanks to the power of love and music. The Firebird and the Grey Wolf. In a distant kingdom there was a wise and mighty ruler, King Miroslav. He had 3 sons, Alexei, Boris, and the youngest, Leonid. The king's pride and joy was his magnificent garden unlike any other in the world. At the heart of this paradise stood a single glorious tree that bore golden apples. But one night a dazzling firebird appeared, its radiant feathers glowing like the sun, its eyes gleaming like the purest crystals. This mystical bird swooped down and plucked the golden apples from the tree, then disappeared into the night. Each night it returned, stealing more apples, and King Miroslav grew distressed. Gathering his sons he declared, Whoever captures the Firebird shall inherit half my kingdom, and the rest when I am gone." Eager to prove themselves, the princes took turns guarding the garden. First Alexei stood watch but soon fell asleep, missing the Firebird entirely. The next night Boris tried but also dozed off. On the third night young Leonid kept careful watch. Suddenly the garden blazed with golden light. The Firebird had arrived. Leonid crept forward and grabbed its tail, but the bird escaped, leaving behind a single shimmering feather. In the morning the king marveled at the feather, which illuminated the entire room like candlelight. Yet he was not satisfied. "My sons, bring me the Firebird itself," he commanded. Determined, the brothers set out on their quest. After days of travel, Leonid reached a crossroads with 3 paths. Choosing the right path, he soon lost his horse to a great grey wolf. "I warned you," the wolf said, "but I will help you. Climb on my back." The wolf carried Leonid to a hidden garden where the Firebird was caged. "Take the bird but leave the golden cage," the wolf warned. However, Leonid's curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed the cage, triggering an alarm. Guards captured him and took him to King Radoslav, who scolded him for stealing. "I will spare you if you bring me the golden-maned horse from King Eldrin's kingdom." The wolf sighed. "You didn't listen, but I will still help." Reaching Eldrin's stables, Leonid took the horse, but also snatched its golden bridle, setting off another alarm. King Eldrin, furious, gave Leonid one last task: bring him Princess Seraphina, whom he had long wished to marry. The wolf carried Leonid to Seraphina's kingdom and used magic to disguise himself as the princess. King Eldrin, deceived, traded the golden-maned horse for the false princess. Leonid then rescued the real Seraphina and returned to Radoslav, exchanging the horse for the Firebird. As Leonid traveled home, his jealous brothers ambushed him, but the grey wolf leaped from the shadows, scaring them away forever. At last Leonid returned to King Miroslav, presenting the Firebird. He and Princess Seraphina wed, ruling the kingdom in wisdom and love. The Firebird lit their garden, and the grey wolf, now a loyal guardian, protected the palace for all time, and so they lived happily ever after. The Samurai and the Tea Master. Long ago in Japan, there was a tea master who served the noble Lord Oda Nobunaga. His skill in the art of making tea was unmatched. Every movement, unrolling the mat, preparing the cups, and sifting the green leaves, was filled with grace and precision. So impressed was his master that he honored the tea master with the robes and rank of a samurai. One day, while traveling with Lord Nobunaga to the great city of Edo, modern-day Tokyo, the tea master went out for a stroll. As he walked through the streets, he encountered 2 fierce samurai warriors. With great politeness, he stepped aside and bowed to let them pass. One of the samurai, a rough and battle-hardened warrior, stopped in his tracks. He looked the tea master up and down, stroking his long, black whiskers. Something about this man seemed strange: his posture, his manner, his build. He demanded to know who the tea master was and what his rank was. With a humble bow, the tea master explained that he served Lord Nobunaga as a master of the tea ceremony and had been granted the honor of wearing samurai robes. The warrior scoffed at the idea. A mere tea maker wearing the robes of a warrior? That, to him, was an insult. A samurai must be ready to fight, and so he challenged the tea master to a duel at dawn. If he died with honor, his ancestors would be proud. If he died in disgrace, at least he would no longer bring shame to the samurai name. The tea master's heart pounded in his chest. He had never held a sword, let alone fought in a duel. His friends tried to calm him, suggesting they offer the warrior a bribe to avoid the fight. But the tea master refused. He had one night to learn how to die with honor, and he would do so. He went to the finest swordsman in Lord Nobunaga's court and explained his plight. He pleaded with the master to teach him how to die like a samurai. The sword master studied him for a moment and then told him to perform the tea ceremony first. The tea master, though nervous, did as he was asked. As he began the ritual, all fear left him. His mind focused only on the tea, the delicate aroma, the smooth motions, the stillness of the moment. When the ceremony was finished, the sword master smiled. That, he said, was the secret to victory. The way the tea master prepared tea, with calmness, focus, and grace, was the same way he must face his enemy. The next morning, as the sun rose, the tea master arrived at the dueling ground. With the same poise as in his tea ceremony, he removed his robe, folded it neatly, and tied his headscarf. Then, with steady hands, he drew his sword and held it high above his head, just as he would lift a teacup. His face showed no fear, only complete focus. The samurai was stunned. This was not the trembling man he had challenged the night before. This was a warrior prepared to fight, a man with absolute control over himself. A chill ran down the samurai's spine. What if he had underestimated his opponent? What if this was a trick? Suddenly, he felt uncertain. Bowing deeply, the samurai admitted his mistake and walked away, leaving the tea master victorious without ever needing to fight. Moral of the story: true mastery comes from within. When you have control over your mind and emotions, no challenge, no enemy, and no fear can defeat you. Parrot and the Magic Chocolate Tree. Every day when Mum or Dad picked up Lee from school, they would walk home past the sweet shop. The shop sold all sorts of food, but Lee only had eyes for the sweet treats. He would always complain about his tummy grumbling and insist that only chocolate could make it better. His dad would tease him, suggesting a healthy stick of celery instead, but Lee found the very idea revolting. No matter how much his parents tried to convince him otherwise, he would persist until he was handed a Snickers or a Mars bar. One day, however, disaster struck. Mum announced that the family would be cutting down on sweets, crisps, and sugary sodas. She had been reading articles about the harmful effects of sugar on children's health and development, and she was determined to make a change. To make matters worse, even the dentist disapproved of sugar, warning that it would rot their teeth. From that moment on, their household was going to focus on healthy eating. That afternoon, Mum prepared a snack plate filled with cut-up apples, cucumber, carrot sticks, and hummus. While she and Dad found it delicious, Lee remained unconvinced. He longed for a bag of Maltesers or a chocolate bar, and no amount of hummus could change his mind. Later that evening, as Lee sat gloomily in his room, a familiar presence arrived. Parrot, a bright green parrot with sharp, intelligent eyes, hopped through the open window. Sensing Lee's distress, he asked what was wrong. Lee, with great sorrow, explained the terrible predicament. His mother had banned chocolate and crisps from his life. It was as if his world had crumbled before his eyes. Parrot, always full of wisdom, listened carefully. He reminded Lee that humans had survived long periods without chocolate, even during times of war. During World War II, chocolate had to be rationed, with families receiving only 4 ounces per month. The thought of such a small amount horrified Lee. Parrot then told him an ancient story about the Mayans, a great civilization in Mexico. According to legend, the Mayans believed that the chocolate tree was a divine gift, brought down from a magical mountain by the god Kukulkan. This tree produced cocoa beans that were more than just food. They carried wisdom, strength, and happiness. Hearing about this magical history fascinated Lee, but it didn't change his craving for chocolate. That night, he dreamt of the legendary Mayan chocolate tree, its branches heavy with rich, velvety chocolate that melted at the touch. The next morning, he eagerly told his mum about Parrot's tale, insisting that chocolate was not just a treat but a sacred food that could even help with school exams. His mother, unimpressed, simply smiled and urged him to get ready for school. Days passed, and Parrot was nowhere to be seen. Lee missed his feathery friend and wondered if he would return with another fascinating story. Then, one evening, a faint tap at the window filled him with excitement. Parrot had returned, and he carried something extraordinary, a mysterious, glowing cocoa bean in his beak. With great pride, Parrot announced that this was no ordinary bean. It was a magic cocoa bean, and if Lee planted it, it would grow into a tree with the finest chocolate he had ever tasted. Overjoyed, Lee wasted no time and planted the bean in the garden. The next morning, to his amazement, a tiny sprout had already appeared. As days passed, the sprout grew into a tree, and soon, its branches bore shiny pearls of chocolate that smelled divine. The first taste was enough to convince everyone. When Dad sampled a piece, he declared it the most delicious chocolate he had ever had. Mum and Lee's little sister, Elle, couldn't get enough either. The entire family marveled at the tree and its seemingly endless supply of rich, smooth chocolate. A week later, Parrot returned to check on Lee. The boy was beaming with happiness. Not only had the chocolate tree brought joy, but something unexpected had also happened. His dad had received a promotion at work, his mum had gained new customers for her business, Elle had won a race at school, and most incredibly, Lee had passed all his exams. He was certain it was all thanks to the magic chocolate. Parrot, amused by Lee's enthusiasm, reminded him of an important lesson. While a little magic and a little chocolate could do wonders, the true power had always been within them, their belief, their efforts, and their hope. From that day on, Lee and his family learned to enjoy their treats in moderation. Even the dentist was impressed with their improved eating habits. And whenever Lee credited Parrot for the magic chocolate, his mum would smile and say that one day, she would have to meet that little bird and thank him personally. True success comes from belief, hope, and effort. Snow White and Rose Red. Once upon a time, in a cozy little cottage nestled at the edge of a great forest, lived a poor widow and her 2 lovely daughters. The cottage was small but warm, and right outside its door bloomed 2 rose trees. One tree bore pure white roses, while the other blossomed with rich red ones. The widow named her daughters after these flowers. The elder was called Snow White, and the younger, Rose Red. The 2 sisters were as good and gentle as children could be. They were kind-hearted, always ready to help their mother with housework, and treated every creature with love and compassion. In the evenings, especially when snow blanketed the earth, the family would gather around the hearth. Their mother would open a large, leather-bound book and read stories of bravery, kindness, and wonder while the fire crackled and the wind howled outside. One chilly evening, as snowflakes danced outside the window and the 3 sat cozily by the fire, there came a knock at the door. "Rose Red," said the mother gently, "open the door. It must be a traveler seeking shelter from the storm." Rose Red quickly rose and opened the door. But instead of a traveler, a great black bear poked his head inside. The children were startled. Rose Red jumped back, and Snow White hid behind their mother's bed. The bear looked at them with gentle eyes and said, "Do not be afraid. I am half frozen and only seek warmth by your fire." The mother, seeing the kindness in the bear's eyes, said, "Poor creature, come in and lie by the fire." She assured her daughters that the bear meant no harm and asked them to help the bear shake the snow from his coat. Snow White and Rose Red fetched a broom and brushed the snow off his thick fur until he was clean and dry. Then he stretched himself before the fire and soon felt quite at home. Over time, the girls and the bear became the best of friends. They played together every evening. The children would tug at his fur, roll over with him on the rug, and even rest their feet on his broad back. The bear growled playfully and never once harmed them. From then on, every evening, they left the door open, eagerly waiting for their furry companion. When spring arrived and the snow began to melt, the bear said to the girls one morning, "Now I must go away and will not return for the whole summer." "Where are you going, dear bear?" asked Snow White. "I must guard my treasure in the forest from the wicked dwarfs who seek to steal it," the bear explained. Though the girls were sad, they understood. Snow White opened the door to let him out. As he passed through, a piece of his fur got caught on the latch, and Snow White noticed a shimmer of gold beneath it. She said nothing but remembered the sight. Some weeks later, the widow sent Snow White and Rose Red into the forest to collect sticks. As they wandered among the trees, they came upon a fallen tree. To their surprise, a tiny man with a long, snow-white beard and a wrinkled face was stuck in the trunk. His beard had gotten caught in the crevice of the wood. "What are you staring at?" he snapped. "Come here and help me." Despite his rude tone, the kind girls hurried to help. Snow White took out a pair of scissors and snipped the end of his beard to free him. The dwarf leapt up in anger. "You clumsy creatures! You've ruined my beautiful beard!" He angrily hoisted a sack of gold over his shoulder and disappeared into the forest without even a thank you. Not long after, the sisters went to a brook to catch fish. There, once again, they heard the gruff cry of the same dwarf. He had been fishing and now was being pulled into the stream by a strong fish. "Help me! Do you want me to be dragged under by this wretched fish?" Without hesitation, the girls ran to him. Rose Red grabbed his arms while Snow White cut away the tangled beard. Once free, the dwarf shouted, "You beast! Another piece of my beard lost. Must you ruin everything you touch?" He snatched a sack of pearls and stomped off. Some days later, the girls were sent to town. On their journey, they heard a terrible cry. Looking up, they saw an eagle swooping down with none other than the same dwarf clutched in its talons. "Help me! Don't just stand there." The brave girls sprang into action, pulling the dwarf down until the eagle gave up and flew away. As usual, he was ungrateful. "Now look what you've done to my coat. You've torn it. Useless girls." He gathered a bag of jewels that had spilled and vanished into the trees. The girls had grown used to the dwarf's unpleasant ways. But one evening, as they walked home, they found him again, counting his sparkling treasure in a clearing. Before they could turn away, the ground trembled with a low growl. A huge black bear emerged from the forest. The dwarf cried out in fear, "Dear Mr. Bear, please spare me. Take these 2 wicked girls instead. I'll give you all my jewels, just let me go." But the bear paid no attention to the dwarf's pleas. With a swipe of his mighty paw, he struck the dwarf, who fell lifeless to the ground. The bear then turned to the girls. But instead of fear, they heard a familiar voice, warm and kind. "Snow White, Rose Red, do not fear. It is I." Before their eyes, the bear's fur slipped away like a cloak, revealing a handsome young man dressed in garments of shining gold. "I am a prince," he said. "The wicked dwarf stole my treasure and cast a spell on me, turning me into a bear. Only his death could break the spell. Thanks to your kindness and bravery, I am free." Snow White and Rose Red rejoiced. In time, Snow White married the prince, and Rose Red married his brother, a noble and kind man. They divided the dwarf's treasure and lived happily in a grand castle. The girls brought their dear mother with them, and she spent her remaining years in peace and comfort, surrounded by love. And so, Snow White and Rose Red, who had always shown kindness, courage, and patience, were rewarded with happiness beyond their dreams. And every spring, the white and red rose trees in the garden bloomed as beautifully as ever, in memory of the 2 loving sisters. The end.
Cinderella. Once upon a time, there was a gentleman who married for his second wife the proudest and most haughty woman there ever was. She had been married before, and already had 2 daughters who were exactly like her in all things. He had likewise by his first wife a young daughter, but of unequalled goodness and sweetness of temper, which she took from her mother, who was the best creature in the world. This sweet little girl missed her mother, who had died, ever so much. No sooner was the wedding ceremony over than the new wife began to show herself in her true colours. She could not bear the goodness of the gentleman's pretty girl, and especially as she made her own daughters appear the more horrid. She made her do the meanest jobs in the house. The girl scoured the dishes and tables, and scrubbed the stepmother's bathroom and those of her daughters. She slept in a little attic upon a wretched straw bed, while her sisters lay upon beds with the softest pillows in fine rooms, with floors covered with beautiful carpets, and walls on which hung looking-glasses so large that they might see themselves at their full length from head to foot. As she was doing this, they said to her, "Cinderella, would you not be glad to go to the ball?" "Alas," said she, "you only jeer me. It is not for a poor girl like me to go there." "You're quite right," replied they. "It would make the people laugh to see a cinder wench at a ball." Anyone but Cinderella would have dressed their heads all wrong, but she was very good and dressed them perfectly well. The step-sisters were almost 2 days without eating. So much were they thrilled and excited. They broke above a dozen corsets in trying to be laced up tightly so that they might have a fine, slender shape, and they were continually at their looking-glass. At last, the happy day came. They went to court, and Cinderella followed them with her eyes as long as she could, and when she had lost sight of them, she fell a-crying. Just then, her fairy godmother, who used to watch over her secretly, saw her all in tears and appeared at her side and asked her what was the matter. I wish I could. She was not able to speak the rest, being interrupted by her tears and sobbing. This fairy godmother of hers said to her, "You wish you could go to the ball, is it not so?" "Yes," cried Cinderella with a great sigh. "Well," said her godmother, "be but a good girl, and I will see that you shall go to the ball." Then she took her into her secret room and said to her, "Run into the garden and bring me a pumpkin." Cinderella went immediately to gather the finest she could and brought it to her godmother, not being able to imagine how this pumpkin could make her go to the ball. Her godmother scooped out all the inside of the big vegetable, leaving nothing but the rind, which done, she struck it with her wand, and the pumpkin was instantly turned into a fine coach, gilded all over with gold. She then went to look into her mouse-trap, where she found 6 mice, all alive, and ordered Cinderella to lift up a little the trap door. As each mouse went out, she gave it a little tap with her wand, and the mouse was that moment turned into a fine horse, which altogether made a very fine set of 6 horses of a beautiful mouse-coloured dapple grey. But they still needed a coachman. "I will go and see," says Cinderella, "if there is a rat in the rat trap. We may make a coachman of him." "You're a smart one," replied her godmother. "Go and look." Cinderella brought the trap to her, and in it there were 3 huge rats. The fairy made choice of one of the three which had the largest beard, and having touched him with her wand, he was turned into a fat, jolly coachman who had the smartest whiskers eyes ever beheld. After that, she said to her, "Go again into the garden, and you will find 6 lizards behind the watering pot. Bring them to me." She had no sooner done so, but her godmother turned them into 6 footmen, who skipped up immediately behind the coach, with their uniforms all bedaubed with gold and silver, and clung as close behind each other as if they had done nothing else their whole lives. The fairy then said to Cinderella, "Well, you have here transport fit to take you to the ball. Are you not pleased with it?" "Oh, yes," cried she. "But must I go there as I am in these nasty rags?" Her godmother only just touched her with her wand, and at the same instant her clothes were turned into a cloth of gold and silver, all beset with jewels. This done, she gave her a pair of glass slippers, the prettiest in the whole world. Being thus decked out, she got up into her coach, but her godmother, above all things, commanded her not to stay till after midnight, telling her at the same time that if she stayed 1 moment longer, the coach would be a pumpkin again, her horses mice, her coachman a rat, her footmen lizards, and her clothes become just as they were before. She promised her godmother she would not fail of leaving the ball before midnight. Then off she went to the ball, scarce able to contain herself for joy. The king's son, who was told that a great princess whom nobody knew was to come, ran out to receive her. He gave her his hand as she alighted out of the coach, and led her into the ball amongst all the company. There was immediately a profound silence. The dancing stopped, and the violins ceased to play. So attentive was everyone to contemplate the singular beauty of the unknown newcomer. Nothing was then heard but a confused noise of "Ah! Ha! How lovely she is! Ha! How lovely she is!" The king himself, old as he was, could not help watching her and telling the queen softly that it was a long time since he had seen so beautiful and lovely a creature. All the ladies were busied in considering her clothes and headdress, that they might have some made the next day after in the same pattern, provided they could find such fine material and as able hands to make them. The king's son led her to the most honourable seat, and afterward took her out to dance with him. She danced so very gracefully that they all the more and more admired her. A fine banquet was served up, of which the young prince ate not a morsel, so intently was he busied in gazing upon her. She went and sat down by her sisters, showing them 1,000 polite gestures, giving them part of the oranges and lemon blossoms which the prince had presented her with, which very much surprised them, for they did not recognize her. While Cinderella was thus amusing her sisters, she heard the clock strike 11 3/4, whereupon she immediately made a curtsy to the company and hasted away as fast as she could. When she got home, she ran to seek out her godmother, and after having thanked her, she said she could not but heartily wish she might go the next day to the ball, because the king's son had desired her to go. As she was eagerly telling her godmother whatever had passed at the ball, her two sisters knocked at the door, which Cinderella ran and opened. "How long you have stayed!" cried she, gaping, rubbing her eyes, and stretching herself as if she had been just waked out of her sleep. "If you had been at the ball," said one of her sisters, "you would not have been tired with it. There came the finest princess, the most beautiful ever was seen with mortal eyes. She was 1,000 times nice to us and gave us oranges and lemon blossoms." Cinderella seemed very indifferent in the matter. Indeed, she asked them the name of that princess, but they told her they did not know it, and that the king's son was very uneasy on her account, and would give all the world to know who she was. At this, Cinderella, smiling, replied, "She must, then, be very beautiful indeed. How happy you have been! Could not I see her? Ah, dear Miss Charlotte, do lend me your yellow suit of clothes which you wear every day." "I?" cried Miss Charlotte. "Lend my clothes to such a dirty cinder wench as you? I should be a fool." Cinderella indeed expected well such an answer, and was very glad of the refusal, for she would have been sadly put to if her sister had lent her what she had asked for jokingly. The next day, the two sisters were at the ball, and so was Cinderella, but dressed more magnificently than before. The king's son was always by her, and never ceased his compliments and kind speeches to her, to whom all this was so far from being tiresome that she quite forgot what her godmother had recommended to her, so that she, at last, counted the clock striking 12 when she thought it to be no more than 11. She then rose up and fled as nimble as a deer. The prince followed, but could not overtake her. She left behind one of her glass slippers, which the prince took up most carefully. She got home, but quite out of breath, and in her nasty old clothes, having nothing left of all her finery but one of the little slippers, fellow to that she had dropped. The guards at the palace gate were asked if they had not seen a princess go out. They replied that they had seen nobody go out but a young girl, very meanly dressed, and who had more the air of a poor country wench than a gentlewoman. When the two sisters returned from the ball, Cinderella asked them if they had been well entertained, and if the fine lady had been there. They told her yes, but that she hurried away immediately when it struck 12, and with so much haste that she dropped one of her little glass slippers, the prettiest in the world, which the king's son had taken up, and that most certainly he was very much in love with the beautiful person who owned the glass slipper. What they said was very true, for a few days after, the king's son commanded it to be proclaimed by sound of trumpet that he would marry the young woman whose foot would perfectly fit the slipper. He sent out his most trusted advisers from the palace, who began to try it upon the princesses, then the duchesses, and all the court, but in vain. It was brought to the two sisters, who each did all that she possibly could to thrust her foot into the slipper, but neither sister could manage to do so. Cinderella, who saw all this and knew her slipper, said to them laughing, "Let me see if it will not fit me." Her sisters burst out laughing and began to tease her. The gentleman who was sent to try the slipper looked earnestly at Cinderella, and finding her very handsome, said it was only right that she should try, and that he had orders to let every girl try. He asked Cinderella to sit down, and putting the slipper to her foot, he found it went on very easily and fitted her as if it had been made of wax. The astonishment her two sisters were in was excessively great, but still abundantly greater when Cinderella pulled out of her pocket the other slipper and put it on her foot. Thereupon in came her godmother, who, having touched with her wand Cinderella's clothes, made them richer and more magnificent than any of those she had seen before. And now her two sisters found her to be that fine, beautiful lady whom they had seen at the ball. They threw themselves at her feet to beg for pardon for all the ill treatment they had dished out to her. Cinderella took them up, and as she embraced them cried that she forgave them with all her heart, and desired them always to love her. She was brought by carriage to the young prince, dressed as she was. He thought her more charming than ever, and a few days after married her. Cinderella was brought by carriage to the young prince, dressed as she was. He thought her more charming than ever, and a few days after married her. Cinderella, who was no less good than beautiful, gave her two sisters rooms in the palace, and that very same day matched them with two great lords of the court. The end.